I'm making some double pie crust today in bulk. So this will make 8 double pie crusts, which you would think might be a little bit excessive. Not everyone has a family as large as mine is, but you can freeze them and just use them one by one. It's the ultimate convenience item when it comes to making a pie, and tastes far better and is far healthier than any of those pre-done pie crusts that you'll get in the store. I begin with 15 cups of unbleached flour, and I'll add 6 tablespoons of sugar. That seems like a lot, but it's really just a pinch in each one. I'll then add 2 cups or 4 sticks of butter and 4 cups of coconut oil. I used to make this with shortening instead of the coconut oil, and you could do that as well, but the coconut is a lot more healthy for you. I did have to put mine in the refrigerator for a little while because mine was a bit soft. I've been canning today, so my house is quite warm. I should probably have left my coconut oil in the refrigerator for a little bit longer because, of course, I want it about the texture of shortening, because I want to be able to beat it into my flour but not have it like thoroughly mixed. I really want it pea-sized pieces of it. That's what makes your pie crust nice and flaky. I'll then use my hand beaters to mix this in until I get little pea-sized pieces of the flour mixed with the butter and the coconut oil. I usually do this on a low speed. It gives me a little more control and it keeps all the flour from jumping out of the bowl. So it usually takes me a good 5 minutes or so to get all of those fats combined with the flour. But once I get it there, I'm really happy with how easy it is compared to using the pastry cutter and working at it. It's not a perfect system. In some cases, it gets them a little bit smaller, especially since my coconut oil was so soft, but it's so much easier, so it makes it worth it for me. Now I need to slowly add 3 cups of cold water, and I do just little bits at a time because I don't want it to combine all of this together. In fact, I might not even use the whole thing. I just kind of watch for it, and when it gets to the point where I can clump it together into a ball, that's when I'll stop. Now that I'm to the bottom half of the water, I'll switch over to using a spoon to stir this in. It'll just give me a little bit more control and keep the shortening and oil from being mixed in too much. I still want this to be a nice flaky dough. The key with a pie crust is to not overwork it. So I want to stir it just enough that I can get everything in there that I need in there, but not so much that it's no longer going to have that flakiness. At this point, I start to separate it into 8 different sections. And you'll have to excuse my hands. It's cherry season right now, so they're all discolored. I then take my divided dough and press it into a ball. Again, I don't want to work with it that much, so I'm not too picky about how it looks at this point. So then I'll wrap it in my plastic wrap, and I repeat that 7 more times. Don't be too picky about the ball shape because of the fact that you don't want to overwork it, and you'll be rolling this out later anyways. I'll then take my wrapped dough and place it inside a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. I can usually fit 4 per bag. I really like having them in the plastic wrap as well because it just makes it easier. They don't stick to each other. I don't need to take up as many bags. I can keep them together in the freezer. And then I label and date it and put it in the freezer until I'm ready to use it. So then once I want to use my pie crust, I'll set it on the counter and let it rest there for about 4 hours. I want to make sure it's not too warm though, because I need it to have some rigidity to it. Otherwise, the oils will just mush right in with all of the flour as opposed to creating the layers that we want. So then I'll cut it in half, but not exactly in half. I'll make one side slightly larger than the other because the larger half will become the bottom. It really does need just a little bit more for that part. I have a 10-inch pie plate, so I'll go to my 10-inch mark. And the best way I've found to do it is put a sheet of plastic wrap, usually the one that it was wrapped in, over the top, and then it won't stick to the roller. It's really kind of an ingenious way to do it because before I used to use the plastic wrap, I had so many issues with it rolling over or getting holes in it. And this just works so much better. If you look at this, you can actually see some of the veining of the butter and the oil in there. And that's what you want, because that's what shows you that you're gonna have the layers. And then I usually place my pie plate directly on it, reach my hand underneath the silicone mat, and flip the whole thing over. Every time I see my hands, I'm a little bit shocked. I forget that they've got that cherry juice all over them. I really love using the silicone mats because it makes this job go so much easier. Then I just kind of work my dough down into the pie plate, and then I'll put my filling in. In this case, it's going to be blueberry strawberry pie filling. This is just some extra that I had from the other day. If there's any large amount of extra left over at the edge, then I cut that off. If it's just a small amount, I'll work it in when I do the edge. I just don't want to overwork it. It's kind of like the whole story when it comes to doing pie. It's just don't overwork the crust. Place my plastic wrap over, and then I'll roll out my top crust. The top crust doesn't have to be quite as large just because it doesn't need to fall into the pan. And then I position it nice and centered on my pie, hopefully centered. Just do the best you can. You can't move it as much once you've got the silicone mat off of it. So try to be happy with your placement before you move that. I then wrap the top crust around the bottom crust just to kind of seal everything in. Okay, so once I have everything kind of rolled up and around, it's nicely sealed. That's when I go back through with my thumb and I just kind of press it all down. Then I'll go through and just shape my edges. Next, I place in 3 vent holes. And then I'll bake this at 350 degrees for anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes. And I always use my little cover to go over the crust. Otherwise, with the crust being higher, it will burn while the rest of the pie looks great. And now you can see how quick and easy it is to go from this to this. So worth making those pie crusts in advance.